Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arth, a culture fest. I am so grateful to be with you here today. My name is Shetty, and I have the honor of hosting today's interview with the one and only Gauranga Das. Gauranga Das is not only an incredible mentor and guide of mine, but he is one of the greatest leadership and mindfulness coaches out of Mumbai. He's a graduate of IIT Bombay as well, and he's the founder of many incredible projects across India that are both philanthropic and service-based in nature. It is my great, great pleasure to speak to him today about his latest book called The Art of Resilience. Gauranga Das, it is always such an honor and pleasure to be with you. I am missing you so deeply, and I'm so glad that we get to do this together.
Thank you so much, Jay. It's a pleasure reconnecting after a couple of years. I remember exactly 2 years ago in May, we were together, and spent a whole afternoon together. I'm very, very happy that we could reconnect and looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so deeply grateful that you've written this book at this time, because the art of resilience is something that everyone in the world needs right now. Everyone is going through so much pain, so much stress, so much pressure. Everyone has lost something, and many people have even lost someone. Tell me about why you thought this was the right time to share this message.
Well, actually, last year during the lockdown, I was contemplating to write something. And then I thought about this particular topic, because to increase our willpower, we need to increase two things. First is our discrimination, which is a capacity to differentiate between what is harmful, what is beneficial, what is short term, and what is long term. And the second thing is to improve our determination, which is the strength to act as per our original identity. So to accept the beneficial, even if it is temporarily painful, and to do away with the harmful, even if it is temporarily pleasurable. So therefore, the secret of this determined effort is the alignment of the human will with the divine will. So I was really thinking that let us spread the message of resilience by penning few stories and then bringing out lessons which would help people develop both discrimination and determination. And as I see the numbers of people going through depression and anxiety, especially during the last 1 year, I really feel that this has become another level of pandemic which we need to deal with, which is mental health.
Yes, absolutely. And I've always, from day one when we met, I've always loved your storytelling style and your ability to share powerful messages from stories. You've always been my favorite storyteller. So I know that people are going to really enjoy the way you share these insights. But, I think a lot of people sometimes feel that monks are removed from society, that they don't experience what everyone else experienced. But as you were just sharing with me just before we started recording, you've lost people during this time as well. There are monks in the community, there are extended members. Tell us about how you've been dealing with the personal loss and the loss within the community of so many leaders and wonderful spiritual friends that you have.
Yeah, it's a fact that, all of us have to deal with these situations, and it has been extremely traumatic. Every single day we are getting information. In fact, all over India, over the last 1.5 months, at least I know at least 90 people who are in some way or the other connected, and who were practicing this process, and we lost them. And it has been a very, very challenging period for the families of those who have lost. At a human level, yes, we are coping with this situation by tolerating the loss, because it is something which we have no control over. At the same time, it's an opportunity for us to introspect, reflect on how each one of us is faced with a situation of death every moment. It's a moment where we can actually go deep into trying to understand what is the real purpose of our life. So we are trying to share our empathy, our good wishes with those who have gone through this calamity. We have tried to share food, we have tried to share medicines, we have tried to share various kinds of support which we can give to those who are affected as part of a community. And at the same time, we are also at an individual level trying to go deeper in understanding that every moment which I carry is a gift and I cannot take it for granted. So many people have asked me question, what is your plans for this year? And I said, my main plan is to remain safe and make sure that we follow the protocols so that we are there to live and tell the tale and be able to serve in the best possible manner and save as many people as possible in this situation of calamity. So yes, it's a fact that it has been extremely difficult, extremely challenging, and you have done such an excellent service and effort, Jay. I must commend you for this. And on behalf of the land of India, we are so grateful to you for doing so much to support and help and create awareness and bring this support towards India, which India really needs at this time of crisis.
No, I really appreciate that. It's India has, through you and through the teachers you introduced me to, you, India has done so much for me through its wisdom, through its knowledge, through its culture, that I've been so blessed to experience through you and through the wonderful projects that you've developed. And so it's the least I could do, and I know that it's only a drop in the ocean. There's so much work that needs to be done. But I think, as you were saying earlier, the bigger focus right now with the work you're doing with the book is to help people develop this sense of resilience internally. And
Right.
when we think about that, one of the biggest challenges that we see is all of us are uncertain about the future. There's a lot of fear about the future. There's lots of uncertainty and discomfort about the future. How do you, through this book, help us process how to think about the future in the right way? What is one to do when one is feeling that fear and uncertainty about what may happen or could happen or might happen?
Thank you, Jay. That's a beautiful point. And as you will recollect when you were spending time as a monk, one of the most important things which we would do while discussing was discussing the Bhagavad Gita. And the whole setting of the Gita is on the battlefield. And the reason being that each one of us is faced with small and large battles every moment. So I basically touch upon four principles. The first principle is acceptance, that unless we accept the unfortunate or fortunate situation, it's a reality beyond our control. That acceptance is the beginning of the journey of positivity. The principle number two, which is something which I've heard a lot from Radhanath Swami, is optimism, that we should look for the silver lining on the cloud even when the situation appears very negative. I remember there was a conversation, and we were dealing with a project, and someone was commenting to me that you must tell Radhanath Swami that this particular project is a black hole, in the sense that he was so negative about the whole thing. And when I told this to Maharaj, he said, yes, Krishna is black and he's the complete whole, Purnamada Purnamidam. So he immediately flipped it around and made it extremely positive. So he has always emphasized that if one is not optimistic and if one is not able to see the positivity, then it will become extremely difficult for us to tolerate our day to day issues and challenges which we go through. So, acceptance, positivity, and third is gratitude. Gratitude in Sanskrit is known as kritagya. Gya means to remember. And one of the effects of loss of memory in this day and age is not just loss of information, loss of data, but the loss of the memory of the fact that we forget who has done what for us at some point of time in life. And therefore I really appreciate the fact that you have noted all the various moments which you have spent in the monastery with the monks and with the teachers so beautifully in your book. And this shows that you have understood the essence of spirituality, which is gratitude. And the fourth very important element is appreciation, that only on the basis of the acceptance, positivity, and gratitude there can be appreciation, because genuine appreciation and encouragement that spreads positivity and joy. And so if you take Ramayana, if you take Mahabharata, any of these literatures, the theme is that in spite of the fact that they have huge armies and kings have ruled over long periods of time, the focus of these texts is not on the expertise of their administration, but 80 to 90% of both these texts focus on the dramatic moments where the heroes have to go through issues, challenges, difficulties, trauma, and how they deal with it, and they show us how we can deal with it.
Mm, absolutely. That's a beautiful, beautiful answer. And I've always loved learning from you. It's always been my favorite place to be, is to be sitting in front of you when you're teaching a class or when you're sharing a message. There's never a better place to be. And now through this book, The Art of Resilience, everyone has the opportunity to have that experience of sitting with you and learning from you, which I'm so grateful that you've put the time aside to share these stories and share these inspirations. Tell us a bit about how you see the world changing. When we met, I was 18 years old when we met. It was 15, 16 years ago now, the first time we connected. And the world was in a different place. Social media wasn't where it is today. Technology wasn't as advanced as it is today. Today, so many young people, especially I know also in the country of India, are just scrolling, addicted to their phones. There's a lot of comparison. There's lots of envy. There's lots of jealousy. There's lots of competition. All of us, I mean, of course, in the United States and the UK as well. What are some of the things that people can do to create better habits and better practices when it comes to technology, when it comes to addiction and obsession with social media and comparing ourselves to others?
That's a beautiful point, Jay. I remember that those were, as I say, pretty simple days where you just did what you were supposed to do and moved on with life. But now, as you have rightly mentioned, there are so many different identities which we are coping with, and especially the young generation, the Gen Z, who's literally grown up with all of this, is having a more difficult challenge. So, Microsoft did a study between 2012 and 2017 and found that the attention span has come down from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. And this is a huge issue which the world is facing. And practically 60% of the car accidents which happen in America every year is due to distraction. So I would say that there are various processes which are inbuilt within our spiritual traditions. And once we put ourselves through that, then gradually the transformation happens. As you have rightly said, that when we are trying to fight this battle alone, it's going to be extremely difficult. So, the step one would be a change in identity. As long as we are identifying ourselves in a certain way, our energy goes in that direction. And therefore, the first change which all of us need is a change in our identity, because that will actually create the right inclinations. Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when he saw himself as a warrior, he was ready to fight. His identity as a warrior inspired him to fight, but when he saw his grandfather, Bhishma, and when he saw his teacher, Dronacharya, suddenly there were these multiple identities where he felt that as a grandson, I must love, as a student, I must respect. And these multiple identities created a conflict within him. Arjuna felt conflicted. And therefore, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to help Arjuna remain fixed in his identity, which would not change as a soul. So, therefore, when there is a need for a change in identity, our inclinations need to change. And that can only happen in the right association. So therefore, the way currently, if you see, Jay, we have almost 31% Christians in the world, 23% Muslims, 16% atheists, 15% Hindus, and 8.5% Buddhists. And there are almost 2 million temples in India. But the whole idea of visiting a temple or a church or a synagogue or a mosque or any other place of worship which people are generally used to needs to be contextualized. People need to understand what is the problem that these places and these books are solving. And if people lose that context, then they will find many of these age old traditions as irrelevant. And that's where people like you and your message with the wisdom going viral is so important, because you are connecting one generation to the other. And the contribution which you are making is actually very, very crucial, especially for this young generation, by giving an association which will help in change in values. So when there is a need to change in identity, when there is a need to change your inclination, you need association. And that association creates change in values. And only after there is a change in values, then one can actually commit oneself to the process and a certain process of transformation. Just like, going online is a process. If you do not know how to go online, how to do a Facebook Live or an Insta Live, you cannot connect with, a whole lot of people. Similarly, there is a process which all the ancient traditions have spoken about, by which you can actually connect to yourself, you can connect to the divine, and you can connect then with other people in the right context. So, therefore, this change in identity and values then creates commitment. And this commitment should be seen in the form of a commitment like people are taking to take vaccine, to take some medicine which will actually prevent them from getting diseased. So therefore, when people say, "Are you into spirituality? Are you into religion?" I say, "No, I'm into healthcare," because ultimately, mantra or a vibration is something which protects the mind from all these negativities and anxieties. And so, when there is commitment to the process, then the consciousness can be cleansed and one can actually experience deep absorption. And I must say that, in your years, when you were in the monastery, you have experienced that kind of a life where every single day there has been a consistent progress in getting connected to the process in the association of so many. And you must have experienced the kind of cleansing which the mind goes through in that kind of a scenario. So you have personal experience of that. And I think this is very important for many of the younger generation to know that just like they take out quality time for specific activities in the day, it is also important for them to take out specific time to cleanse their consciousness, to nourish their mind, to strengthen their focus so that they can actually build their mental health.
Yeah, very well said. I really like that point on how you're in the healthcare space and you believe in healthcare. I think that's such a great way of putting it. And you're absolutely right. Thanks to you, and the credit goes to yourself and so many of the other teachers that you introduced me to, that I was able to have those experiences when I was 18 years old and at a very young age. And those experiences, I always say that, being a monk was like going to school, and then life afterwards has been the exam. And if I have passed at anything, it's only because the teaching was so good, and that the teachings were so practical and applicable in the real world. And so the exam has been a real test over the last few years in so many different ways. But when you have the spiritual tools and the ideas to support you, it can be really, really, truly helpful. So absolutely, I definitely vouch for that and that approach. Tell us about how you chose the stories for the book. You know, there are 40 stories to uplift the mind and transform the heart inside of the art of resilience. How did you go about, because you know so many stories, you share so many stories from scripture and other teachings and analogies. How did you decide which 40 stories went in the book?
Well, actually, I've been doing a series on Hare Krishna TV called Yoga Stories for the last 3, 4 years. And basically, these are stories which have been told and retold by so many of the seers from the past, and many things which I've heard from devotees in our association. So the idea was that in the scriptures, it is described that there are three ways of sharing a message. It is known as Shrutena, Arthena, Anjasa. So it means one is literal, that means directly you say something and share the message. Second is that you actually give an analogy and explain, and third is through stories. Therefore, in the Vedic scriptures also, the direct messaging comes in the form of Upanishads, and the Puranas, they actually carry all the different stories which also carry the very important messages along with them. So, these are stories which some of them I have read at various places, some of them heard from different people, some of them were experiences which converted into stories. And the whole idea was that the theme is how we can facilitate self improvement, because when things are changing so rapidly in this world, it's practically impossible to have control over those changes. And at best, we can try to at least improve ourselves, because those who dedicate themselves for self improvement demonstrate harmony between their purpose, between their passion and their profession. They demonstrate resilience in the midst of tremendous adversity. Those who are aspiring for self improvement demonstrate integrity in their character. They show dedication to service without selfish consideration. And those who are aspiring for self improvement also demonstrate self confidence in their mission. And they're extremely conservative in choosing, what kind of association they would be in. So, many of these stories are carrying themes around this. And so I thought, the best way to learn is when you're traveling with someone. I remember in 2012, we traveled in America, where I think that was one of the last years where you spent in the monastery. And I came to London, and then you traveled with me to America when we went to a few places. And I remember it was the appearance day of Lord Narsingha, and we spent the festival together. And I shared the story of Lord Narsingha and Prahlad, and how Hiranyakashipu represents the evil, Ashubh Icha, inauspicious desires, and Prahlad represents the auspicious desires, and the conflict between auspiciousness and inauspiciousness is demonstrated in that seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And one thing I must commend is the way you would take notes, and your handwriting was like so beautiful. I can't forget that. And I always knew that all of these stories which I was sharing from the different scriptures would definitely have its impact through you, when you would actually translate it and present it in a manner which would really connect with people in this generation. And I think you have done that amazingly, and I congratulate you for this amazing achievement.
You're too kind to me, Gauranga Das. You're too honestly too kind. I don't deserve that at all. Everything that I've learned and that I have is because of you. And for those of you who have read Think Like a Monk, you know that I speak about Gauranga Das throughout the book, based on pretty much every lesson that I've learned, because he was my inspiration to want to be a monk my own self, and has continued to be an inspiration even since I've left the monastery, got married. Gauranga Das remains a extremely amazing mentor, guide, and friend in my life and my wife's life as well. And we're just so grateful. We're so grateful that, you know, what I saw in you all those years ago is as being someone who, I've talked about it often, that, you know, when I was 18, I'd met people who were rich, I'd met people who were famous, I'd met people who were beautiful and attractive, I'd met people who were strong, powerful, but I don't think I'd met anyone who was truly happy. And whenever I see you, I feel you're happy and you're joyful, and whenever we're together, we're always laughing and smiling together. And you know, I think that requires such a dedication, as you said. It requires such a determination to continuously be that way. And now you're finally sharing that in this beautiful book. I want to ask you, I do this on my podcast. It's the rapid fire round. So it's 5 questions, 1 word or 1 sentence maximum for each question. You were one of the most popular podcasts that I've had on my podcast on purpose. People love you. So I think this final rapid fire fast 5 questions will be really good. So Gauranga Das, are you ready for your final 5?
Well, you know, it's a challenge which I have to accept because you are now the guru.
I don't think you would ever back down from a challenge, from what I know from you. Okay, so these are your final 5. So the first question, and you can answer with 1 word or 1 sentence is fine as well. The first question is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Be submissive and obedient.
Wow, amazing. I'm going to ask a bit about that, though. I think I would love for you to explain that. I think a lot of young people today, they feel that they've always been submissive and obedient, but maybe to an authority that took advantage of them, didn't want what was best for them, didn't understand them. Where does your thought process on that advice come from as the best piece of advice you ever received? Because I think even me, you know, as a young person, I struggled with authority until I met you. So, you know, it's an interesting thing as a young person we don't like leaders because leaders often let us down. So please explain that a bit more, and you can share more than 1 sentence.
Yeah, I mean, if you see that, you know, you cannot throw the baby with the bathwater. There are divorces happening, but still marriages are happening. There are being mistakes made in the hospitals, but people are still getting admitted to the hospitals. So there are food poisonings cases happening, but still people are eating. So, you know, the principle is what is important. And the constitutional position of the soul is to be a servant. And in every relationship, there will be scarcity, impediment, discomfort, and unhappiness. But as souls, we are designed to serve. And, you know, it's a fact that maybe there are various challenging situations where we cannot find that ideal relationship, but ultimately we have no way around that. I was fortunate to have people like my parents and Radhanath Swami in my life, where I could actually find the congruence between those teachings and real life examples. So it was probably easier for me. But the fact is that, you know, ultimately all of these literatures properly and in a very focused manner just bring us to that conclusion. So, you know, that's what it is. And the real experience is the ultimate proof.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's beautiful. Okay, second question. What is the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Be whimsical.
Yeah, great one. Third question. What is something that other people value, but you don't value?
Political power.
And then the fourth question, what is the biggest lesson you've learned in the last 12 months?
Time is of essence.
And fifth and final question is, if you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would that law be?
Spend quality time concentrating and be absorbed in spiritual life.
Beautiful. Gauranga Das, thank you so much for answering all my questions so wonderfully, so beautifully. Everyone who is listening or watching right now, please go and get The Art of Resilience. You won't regret it. 40 stories to uplift the mind and transform the heart. I couldn't recommend it more if you truly want to dive in. And please take any opportunity to hear from and learn from Gauranga Das. I continue to encourage everyone to do that, because I know that that's my hope for myself in my life, that I continue to learn from you for many years and lifetimes to come, and that you continue to keep me in your shelter and in your guidance as well. So thank you so much, Gauranga Das. I'm eternally grateful to you, and so happy to have spent this time with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay. And my best wishes for all your wonderful efforts which you're doing. And the world currently needs the message which you're sharing with all, and especially the inspiration and the confidence which you're giving to the young generation. So many youth are inspired by your message. They really look up to you. And especially in India, since the time your book has come about, people are just waiting for you to visit us. So we are all waiting for the day when you land in India, and we'll receive you with the red carpet.
I'm so excited to be back in India. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.